Hello, and welcome back to the My First Marathon podcast, where we interview runners in all stages of their running careers about their first marathon experiences to prove to you that anyone can run a marathon. My name is Taylor, and today I'm joined by somebody whose running journey has inspired thousands. Keira D'Amato is a professional runner, American record holder in the marathon, and now the author of her brand new book, Don't Call It a Comeback. Her story stretches from high school cross country to a decade away from the sport, and then from a first marathon fueled by gummy bears to a comeback that led all the way to the American record. What I love most about Keira's story is how much it reminds us that progress starts with small steps, sometimes literally 90 seconds at a time, and grows into something bigger than you could ever imagine. Today, we'll talk through her journey, what she's learned along the way, and what she hopes readers take away from her new book, which will be out September 9th. Without further ado, let's jump right in. Please welcome Keira D'Amato. Well, Keira D'Amato, thank you so much for coming to the show. Welcome to My First Marathon. Super stoked to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me and happy to be here.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I was fortunate enough to get a copy of your book early, so very lucky to have this in my hand. And I'm sure it was a lot of work too over the last, how long has this been a thought for? How long has this been a project for you?
Yeah, we started in 2022. So it's been
Wow.
like over 3 years of, gathering, creating, writing, and copywriting, editing. So yeah, it's been a long journey, but similar to a marathon. Very similar to a marathon, really.
That's very cool. How does it feel? The book's coming out on September 9th, right? That's the
Yep.
official release date. How does it feel knowing that all this work is finally going to be in people's hands?
I'm really excited. I'm so proud. It's funny because like setting out to write a book about myself felt very vain. And it's like, why would people want to read about me? So I like combated that with making sure that it had hopefully some like life lessons and some like takeaways, like not in a preachy way, like I don't want it to come off self-helpy, but
Sure.
hopefully people can read it and feel inspired and be able to like want to go set a goal and go after something without being afraid to fail and find their way back to their happiest and truest self. But yeah, it's funny because I feel really nervous about the launch and I feel really vulnerable putting it all out there because
Yeah.
it's all, it's all in there, good, bad, and ugly. It's in there. And then I'll read it again and I'm reminded that this is really good for the world. Like this is like sharing my journey in hopefully a way that other people can relate and learn and laugh at me or just laugh in general. So every time I read it, I'm like really proud and really excited. But then when there's like a little lull, then I start getting nervous again. Like, oh my God, I'm about to put it all out there. Yeah.
Sure. No, I can imagine that that's just like a roller coaster of emotions to have like literally everything about your running journey out into the world. But I think that for me, especially somebody coming from, not a non-elite background, like I really felt myself being able to see myself in you and your story and like how you were able to reinvent yourself and get back to these big goals. And I think it was a really great read. So I'm really excited for more people to read it. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
And that's like why, I started out right in the prologue that like running is about so much more than how fast. And like we can all identify as runners. Like I'm not any more of a runner because I've run a marathon or I've run a marathon in XYZ time. Like we are all like, even if people have never taken a step, like a running step in their life, they can be a runner that hasn't run yet. And so like I think my journey is unique because I've seen some really high highs in the sport, but I also was a runner who didn't run for close to 10 years. And I was a runner who hated running. I was an injured runner. I was a runner that like I lost my way for a long time and I put running back in my life for me, mental health, physical health. So I've seen all the different sides of running, which, some pros only see the top, and they have good days and bad days, but they don't see the whole spectrum of why we all run and what it means to us and all the different reasons behind some of us getting out there and moving our body.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you had a chance to kind of like reinvent who you were in the running space multiple times, it seemed like, throughout the book. So I'm sure we'll get into some of that for sure. But, we always like to start on this show from the beginning, how we got into running in the first place. Where did this all start for you?
Yeah, I love playing sports. I'm just like, I love competing. I love like playing. So growing up, I signed up for every sport my parents would drive me to. So I played soccer and I was on the swim team and I played basketball and I did tennis and a short stint at t-ball until I got hit by, our like big our big like batter. Like I was on third
Sure.
and he hit it right at me and hit my shoulder. I'm like, this is not for
That's
me.
it.
This much contact, not for me. But
Yeah.
besides that, I just love to play and I love to compete. And I joined the cross country team in high school my freshman year to show the soccer coach how fit I was. And I wanted to see, like, if he could see that I could run a whole 5K in cross country, he would know I could play and maybe I'd even make varsity. So I did it with those intentions of playing soccer. And then I started figuring out that first year that like I'm a runner and I love running, and this like it just calls me in a way and it centers me in a way that no other sport ever has. I love how like genuine and authentic it is. Like I think for the same reason I really like math, that 1 + 1 = 2.
Yeah.
For the most part in running, like if you're patient and you do things the right way and you build up slowly and you work hard, you see results for the most part. So I liked that like rawness of it. Yeah, and I just kind of became hooked ever since my freshman year in cross country.
Yeah, that's very cool. So cross country, that's kind of like I guess we could say like a shorter distance or a mid distance, but it's not like a sprint. It's not, you're not in the track world. So what was it about cross country and I guess those like middle distances that really drew you to cross country specifically?
So I think what it was, that it was long enough of a race that you start out and you're like, I got this. Like, this is great. And then somewhere halfway in the race or a mile into the race or wherever it is, you go into the pain cave and everything sucks. And like, I remember so vividly every race my freshman year, like looking at my environment around and thinking like, this is hard. Why am I doing this? And then thinking, well, I'm not going to quit because I'm not a quitter, but maybe some environmental thing will take me out so I can stop running, but not quit. And so I was like hoping that a deer would come out of the woods and run me over, or that like a stray golf ball would hit me, or a kid like playing baseball again, I'd get hit by a pitch or something. Like I was hoping for all these wild scenarios because I was hurting. But I never quit and I worked through it and I made my way to the finish line and I was so proud. Every time I got to the finish line, I just kept thinking there were so many times during that race that I wanted to stop and I was hoping something would make me stop, but I didn't. I pushed through it and I'm really proud of myself that I found that I have more in me than I even knew.
Yeah.
And so I think I kind of fell in love with that cycle my freshman year and like just feeling so proud that I worked through all that. And it like really made me confident. And it really built my self-esteem. I learned how to like work towards things. I learned about goal setting. So I felt like I started learning all these super important life lessons through cross country my freshman year. So yeah, and I just felt really powerful that I was like talking back to those voices that were a little bit negative in the race, and I was able to overcome that and be better than that. So yeah, enjoy it. And I love the people. Like I came in and I just was immediately around other like-minded people that like to work hard, that were very inclusive, that we just like to chit chat on runs. So it really became a lot about community for me too, and about my girlfriends and my friends that I made the freshman year of cross country are still like, there's 7 of us, like we're still best friends to this day.
I love that. And that's great.
That is really special. But I think like running kind of brought us together in that way.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think cross country might be unique in that sense of like how much time you get to spend with people doing the activity. Like soccer, you're playing with other people, but it's fast paced. Everybody, like you don't really have time to connect with people. So that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so cross country. Obviously you went through and did that through high school. When did you start to think about racing outside of your high school sport? When did that start to kind of make its way into your life?
Yeah, I think by the time I was a junior and I started getting college letters, like in recruiting, and then I was thinking, I can continue running. And so I guess like ever since I was in elementary school, I wanted to be a pro soccer player. So I was really open-minded to the idea of a career in athletics. And I remember so vividly, my 4th grade teacher was like, okay, everyone draw a picture of what you want to be when you grow up. And I wrote, I want to be a pro soccer player. And she took me aside and was like, hey, Keira, like, that's a great goal. But also, like, you're very talented. You're very, like, clever and you work hard in class. Like, you could do other things too. Like, what about like a doctor or first woman president? Or like, you can set your sights like bigger and use like your brains too. And I like remember thinking like, I don't know, soccer player sounds like pretty awesome. So I think I'm going to stick with being a soccer player. So I was always, I guess, I was brought up open-minded to being able to pursue athletics. And I don't know if that was like from my parents or how I was like given just, I had that as an option in my head. But so when I started getting recruited to colleges, like it kind of was like, yeah, this is the path. If I want to continue on, if I want to be a pro runner and make it to the Olympics and wear Team USA across my chest, like I need to go to college and keep progressing. So yeah, I guess that's how that happened.
Yeah, cool. And the Olympics, I remember reading that in the book that like that you were thinking so long term from such an early age. How do you feel like that like shaped your running journey at that time, if that makes sense? Like having these really, really massive goals, like how did that impact you?
I think it's so healthy to have like big goals. Like, and I don't think the big goals are end all be all, but I think they serve as a North Star for like all your other intermediary and like, small goals too. So I think having that idea that I could be an Olympian one day if I continue on. And then every time that like I lose a race or I'd fall short of a goal, like I was quickly able to say, okay, I'm not there yet. So it's like I knew that's the direction I was heading, but I was also okay that it was going to take time. And that's hard to say, especially to like a high schooler and a college student, because we want everything now. Like I didn't have the patience that I have now. But I don't know. I think like having those big goals that allow you, and I also like, I feel like having those big goals like that, whenever you have to make a decision in your life, you can kind of filter that decision through like your end objective, right? So it's like, okay, all my friends are going on a party cruise. They're going to be drinking all week or whatever like that. Like, should I go? And it's like, well, is that going to get me to the Olympics? Probably not. That doesn't support that goal. And there's obviously not everything in my life supports my like athletic goals, but I think having a North Star dream helps put all the other things in your life also in perspective. So I think that was okay, but I think that allowed me to continue to work and just, I don't know, just try to take the steps to get there.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. Yeah, having a big end goal that you can, like you said, like put other things up against when you're trying to make big decisions throughout your life or even small decisions. Yeah, I think that's totally true. So I guess we're in college now. We're on the cross country team. When did the marathon start to make its way into your life? Like, how did we get from this middle distance to this bigger distance, or taking on like more endurance?
Yeah, I never thought I'd be a marathoner. And in fact, like I didn't really realize I was a marathoner until I broke the American record in the marathon. Wow. That's when I was like, okay, maybe I'm a marathoner. But in college I was more of like a miler. And so running like anything more, even a 10K seemed like way too long. So definitely I was not in marathon mentality then. But I think what like first opened my eyes was, so I ran in college and then I ran a little bit post collegiately, and then I got an injury that pushed me out of the sport and I quit. And so during that, like, I call it my halftime show, but before I started making this, like, don't call it a comeback, I didn't run for a really long time. But in 2013, I remember watching the Boston Marathon when the Boston bombings happened. And my immediate reaction was, I need to do a marathon and show people that I'm not afraid to show up on the starting line. Like, we need to show people this is not okay, and that like our community is resilient and we're strong, and we're not going to let you deter us from doing something that's like so healthy and so community oriented. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to train. I'm going to do a marathon to try to qualify for the Boston Marathon. So I was convinced I was going to run Boston in 2014. So I picked the Missoula, Montana Marathon in July, thinking that would give me, so this was April. So I'm like, that will give me about 3 months to train, which should be enough, right, for a marathon, even though I was running nothing. Wasn't running at all. And then I was like, and it would, I don't know, and it was like kind of at altitude, but I didn't really even think about that. But I was so far removed from the runner I was from college, and I had no idea what it took to become a marathoner. So I feel like I was in a really weird no man's land, that I had the confidence of a cocky college miler, but I had no experience for the marathon. So that was kind of a recipe for disaster for my first marathon.
Sure. Yeah, and I guess to take it back a little bit, because that was a 10-year halftime show, right? Like that it was a
Yes.
long time.
Yes.
So during that time, right, you started correct me if I'm getting this wrong, but like you started a family. Like there was a lot that had changed, right, between that first stint and where you were now. So like, I guess if you remember, what were some of those things that you were thinking about when you were returning to running that you were like, gosh, I'm gonna have to change some things because I'm like a completely different person now?
Yeah, so I had just gotten married to my now ex-husband, but we hadn't yet had kids. But we had recently gotten married and we weren't living the healthiest lifestyle.
Sure.
But I was recently, after I quit running, I got a job first in development, like doing my IT, like falling back on my IT degree, I guess. And then I moved over and started working at a running store doing their marketing. So I feel like I was involved with running again at this point, and I was encouraging others. I was rooting for people, and I was hopefully like getting them out to like move their body. But yeah, I was in a totally different headspace, and I wasn't really feeling competitive. I didn't have any goals. I wasn't really running or doing anything. Like I was kind of really floundering just in my life with like, I really liked supporting others, but I wasn't really doing anything for myself. So putting a marathon on the calendar, this was the first time I had really done, like picked out a goal for me. It was the first like athletic goal I'd had since I quit running over 5 years before. And I really I kind of took it for granted with what it took to train for something and like hit a goal. So I really didn't train. I was like, yeah, I'm Keira the runner. Like I used to run a lot, so this will be easy. So I really I took it for granted, and I did one 20-mile run that I ran super slow. And yeah, but besides that, I really wasn't running too much. So I was very undertrained, and I really, lesson learned, never take for granted a marathon. Like you have to really train. You have to get your body ready. Your body needs to be ready for the time on feet. It needs to be ready for long runs. It needs to be strong enough to support you being out there and doing something so physically active for a while. So I didn't do any of that. So I showed up kind of trying to rest on my college laurels, which was over 5-6 years ago.
Yeah. No, that's completely different. And I guess when did the reality check, so to speak, set in through that process? Like, was it at the start line where you were like, shoot, I probably should have done something different? Or
even at the start line, I'm like, I got this. Like running had always come pretty natural for me. I'd always worked really hard, but I don't know. It was always I don't know. You can kind of fake it in a mile or a 5K. Like even when you're not super fit. Okay, so you go out too hard, you struggle for 5 or 10 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever, and then it's fine. Yeah. But yeah, so I got into the race. I'm like, oh, this will be good. And the Boston Marathon qualifying time was 3:35 at the time for women under 35. So I was like, perfect. I'll run 3:25 and I'll give myself a 10-minute buffer. So I went out with a 3:25 pace group. And I felt like I was going fine until around mile 13, you go up this huge hill. And I was like, this is intimidating. I'm just going to slow down a little bit. So I let them go. And then on the way down, I think that's when everything started falling apart. And I think my body was already really tired, and I'm running. It was a pretty steep downhill, and I was probably overstriding, and it was pounding on my quads. And then when we got to the flat around mile 16, then my quads first tightened up. So I kept stopping to stretch my quad or my calves first, and then my quads, and then just everything. So I was walk running for the next 10 miles. And I remember just counting down the steps to the next aid station or any sort of there was a lot of spectators out on the course that just put up their own tables with gummy bears. There were so many gummy bears. Yeah. So I stopped at every single table, physically stopped, and would just shove as many gummy bears into my mouth, and just thinking, this might kill me, but if I have gummy bears in my mouth, they can just say she was killed by a bear, right? Which
yeah, I love that.
Which may be better than just she didn't train at all for a marathon and got she got
it was the gummy bears.
It was the bear. She got a bear killed her. But like, I'm really proud of myself in that race that I kept moving forward. Like, even though everything hurt, I found a way to move gummy bear table to gummy bear table. And the three, I lost the 320 group, I lost the 330 group, the 340 group went by. And then I could see the finish line just as the guy that was holding the 350 group with all the bobbling balloons, he went by me. And I had like just enough left to like just like out sprint him. And I finished, and I was so proud to finish that day. I was so proud to call myself a marathoner. I was so proud that I had covered the 26.2 miles. And I didn't care one bit that I walked miles to get there too. Like, I was so proud. Like, it still counts. If you cover the distance, it counts. You're a marathoner.
Yes.
And but I remember like very vividly thinking, one, I'm not a marathoner. This is not for me. And even like, I was so stubborn, I didn't even think, well, maybe I could be a marathoner if you actually tried, Keira. If you would have actually committed time to training, maybe you could be one. But I was like, nope, this is not for me. That's okay. I'm not a marathoner. I'm never going to do that again. But actually, like, a really funny story. I've said my whole career that, like, whether you're first or last, if you're crossing a finish line, you should be celebrating like the person who's first is celebrating. And you should be waving your hands up high. You should be not stopping your watch right at the stop line, because then that that ruins like the good finish line picture. But you should be putting your hands up. You should be, doing whatever. You should be looking thrilled. And right after I broke the American record in the marathon, so this was now, I don't know, maybe, I guess this is about 8 years after that. I broke the American record, which is wild, crazy. But the Missoula, Montana Marathon said, this is where it all started. Here's Keira's finish line video. And like, my first reaction was, oh no, everyone's going to see I'm a fraud, because that race went terribly. And I remember being like, I was so down, and like, and I don't quite remember what I did when I finished. But like, I hope I wasn't a poor sport, because I was really proud to finish that day. And so I clicked on the link, and it shows me crossing the finish line. Like, maybe I was the top 100 that day for women. I have no idea. But I like am crossing the line, hand raised, I'm cheering, I'm like jumping across. I was so proud. And that made me really proud that I'm like, okay, I've actually been living like what I preached, even on days that are like, that was the toughest marathon probably of my life. But I finished like really proud that I had accomplished that day. So that was pretty funny. Yeah.
That's great. I love that. Yeah, it's like the marathons that are the most difficult, and a lot of people will relate their first marathon to that marathon that was the most difficult, where you had to push through the most, and you had to really dig deep and pull yourself across the finish line any way that you can. Like, I think those are the ones that teach you the most. So when you get that experience right out the gate, when you come out on your first marathon, you get to push through something hard like that, and you get to the finish line, you get to feel that sense of accomplishment. Like, 100% agree. You should definitely be celebrating that. But I also feel like that's the one that is easy to be the most disappointed with yourself on, but that's the one that like teaches you the most. Would you agree that those races are what have, kind of shaped you?
100%. Yeah. The days that everything's going your way and the weather feels good and everything's clicking, and you're like on track to maybe get a PR or close to whatever, like, those days are almost easier to keep pushing forward, because you're like, you have that carrot dangling in front of you. But the days that go south, and it's not going to be like your best day ever, like, sometimes it's like, I don't even know if this is the best that I can give this day. Those are the ones that I think we should all be the most proud of, because we finished anyways.
Yeah.
And we gathered it up. We kept moving forward. Like, we sucked it up. Like, we said whatever we needed to say to keep us moving forward. Like, those are the days that, one, we should be the most proud, because they're the hardest. And then two, like, you can finish and think, what did I learn? Like, what did this race teach me today? And I'm sure there's like, sometimes it's like, well, the weather was crazy. That was out of my control. And those are a little bit of flukes. But then also it's like, well, maybe I shouldn't have gone for a hike yesterday.
Sure.
Maybe I shouldn't have had Indian food and eaten like tons of ice cream last night. Like, that maybe wasn't good for my stomach. So then you can learn and you can improve, and then you're a better version afterwards. So I always look at that like, I just leveled up. Like, that was really hard, and I fell short of my goal, but I got another tool for the toolbox, and like my, like, I don't want to call it the failure toolbox. So lessons learned toolbox is huge, because by default, more of the races have not gone the way that I've hoped, and I've fallen short, or I've really learned a lesson in it. So I have all these lessons learned in my toolbox that make me a really like dangerous person to race, because I've failed in so many different countless ways, but I've learned and I've grown from it.
Totally. Yeah, and it makes the big races, the ones where things do go all your way, like even more special when you have those moments. So you can see like the floor of where your abilities are, and you can see the peak of where your abilities are. I think that's great.
Right. And then you appreciate the highs, right? Because you know not every day is going to go your way. You're not going to quote unquote win every race, but when you do, oh man, that's special. That's real special.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Well, let's fill in some of the gaps. So we ran your first marathon. That was a learning experience, but you said that you were thinking, I don't ever want to do this again. Like, I'm not a marathoner. This is not for me. I'm going to stick to what I know. Or it's something you were in a running like stint at the time. So maybe you were thinking like, I'm done altogether. That was it. But where did we go from there? What was the mindset after that first marathon that led us to running more marathons since?
So after that, then I had 2 kids, and it was like having a 0 and a 1-year-old at home. And my husband at the time was part of the Air National Guard, and he was gone all the time. So for more than a year, by the time my daughter, who's the youngest, was 3, he was very, very busy with the Guard. And so it was kind of then where I was like really struggling. I was overwhelmed as like a new mother. I was in a new town, so I really didn't have like very many friends or like an outreach system. And I really struggled. Like, I was in a pretty dark place. And then I decided, like, no one's going to get me out of this place but me. Like, I need to be accountable for my own happiness, and like, I need to make a change. So I decided I'm going to start running again. And maybe if I start running and losing some weight, maybe I'd start feeling better about myself. So I went out to try to run 3 minutes, thinking that usually when you set like a low bar that feels like achievable enough, it will get you out the door. But because I knew, like, back in my 20s, if I had to run like, say, an 8-mile run, I'd say, okay, and I didn't want to run. I'd just be like, okay, run 2 miles, get yourself out the door. And then easily that 2 miles turned into 4, turned into 5, or then you do 8 and you're like, wow, like, that's awesome. So I was like, so that first day after, like, as like a new mom, I was like, let's just run 3 minutes, thinking that's such a low bar. Like, surely 3 minutes will turn into 5, will turn into 10. And I went out the door. I ran as far as I could until like the lungs started collapsing. The legs were so heavy, and like my body shut down, and it was 90 seconds. And I like stopped, walked home, and cried. But I just started accepting, okay, like right now, Keira, like Mom Keira, you're a 90-second runner. Let's see if we can grow from there. And it was actually a gift that I was so far removed from like Keira in her 20s and college running Keira that like I didn't even compare myself to her anymore. So now I was just Mom Keira, who's starting fresh. And right now, Mom Keira is a 90-second runner. So let's see if I had to take a day off because that like crushed me both mentally and physically. Sure. But then 2 days later, I'm like, well, maybe now today I could be a 3-minute runner. And eventually I made it 3 minutes, and then I celebrated like I'd won the Olympics. Then I was like, well, if I can run 3 minutes, maybe I can run 2 minutes, then take a walking break and run another 2 minutes. And so I just kept slowly building that up. And then my body was like responding, and I was learning, and I was teaching, and I was growing. And it was so fun to see progress. Even if that progress was running for 5 whole minutes, it was so fun to feel a little bit better than I was yesterday. So it felt like I was winning every day.
Yeah.
And I don't know, and then 5 turned into 10 turned into like, can I run a 5K without walking? And the first time I did a 5K, I remember like I put my son to bed for nap time. My daughter was in a bouncer, and I was on the treadmill, and I tried to run a whole 5K without walking. And it took me like 31 minutes, and I like could not believe that I ran a whole 5K without taking any walking breaks. I was so proud of myself. And and then it just like kept growing from there. And eventually I decided, like, I think I can do a marathon without like, and this is, I'm like speeding up the timeline here, but I was like, I think I can do a marathon now without walking, and since I had walked so much in Missoula, it was just a really nice goal that literally was my only goal, was to not walk. But I think I had put running in my life then as a new mom and like one that was like struggling. That it was like my joy. It was my little time for me. It was making me feel so good. I was losing weight. I was feeling good about myself. I had my own goals that weren't associated with how many diapers I could change.
Yeah.
So it was really like making me really happy. And so I started doing more of it. And the more I did, the longer I could run and the faster I could go. So yeah, and then I signed up for a marathon and did the Shamrock full marathon in Virginia Beach
Cool.
and ran 3:14, which I was like, how did that happen? Like, how did Mom Keira just run like 30 minutes faster than Keira? So, and that like created this beautiful, I was like, well, if I can run 3:14, like maybe I can run faster than 3:14. So it created this like ongoing little thing where, I would do something and then ask myself, well, what if I can run a little longer, run a little faster? But I think the moral of all that was it was so fun for me. And it was like that little sliver of time in my day that was just for me. And I was feeling good about myself. I started making like running friends and like making running into a community thing and social. And I was getting out of the house. So it was really like I needed that in my life so desperately for everything that was going on in my life.
Yeah, that's great. And it sounds like it found you, like you said, like at the perfect time. And I think it's really cool that you got to have this experience of like you said, when you were in high school, when you were in college, like running was something that came naturally to you. So now you had this experience of like getting to build from scratch and getting to, I think you mentioned in the book, like relate to other runners a little bit more and like see the other side of the coin of what it takes to build from like an absolute zero, instead of relying like on your athleticism. So that's incredible. When you were doing that like slow gradual build from the like 90-second run all the way up to, hey, I think I can run a marathon, like what were some other things that you felt like you were learning about yourself or learning about how you like can show up for in your life, like with your kids? Like what were some of those lessons that were being learned throughout that entire process?
I think like the first thing I learned was like I was feeling a lot of mom guilt or just like parental guilt of doing something for myself. And I was learning through that one, my kids would be okay without me temporarily. So like I could leave them with a sitter or my in-laws, or like I didn't have to be there all the time with them. I could go for a run, I could come back and their world could go on without me, to an extent, right? I'm not like, and that was nice because I felt guilty even taking 20 minutes out of my day to even like, I don't know, go for a run and shower or whatever. So the fact that I eventually started building up and doing some longer runs, like, but that was really hard to like learn and to trust and just to feel like it was okay to have something on my own.
Yeah.
But I was realizing that one, like I was definitely a better mother when I was able to do something for myself and just having running in my life and doing something physically exerting, right?
Yeah, I think so.
It gave me energy to be a better mom. Like I felt more present when I was with my kids. Like I felt more centered. I felt like really proud and I just felt like really powerful that like I just went out and ran 5 miles this morning while you guys were still sleeping. And now I can like, I don't know, I just felt like really like confident. So I think running made me a better mother. And I think being a mother put running in perspective that it's just running. Right?
Yeah.
Like no one's like, I come back from a run and like, or a race and my kids are like, they don't care what my pace was or what like place I was. They just want to know what's for dinner and if they can have ice cream for lunch. Right? That's all they care about. So I think that really the perspective of being a mother made me a much better runner. But then I just also realized how much fun running can be. And it didn't have to be, my goals didn't have to be what I thought my goals had to be in my 20s. They could be whatever I wanted to aim for. It could be trying to, do a race, or it could be running to see how many miles I can run this weekend. It could be running to see a new place. It could be running to meet new friends. It could be running just because you want to treat yourself to like a Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks drink afterwards, So there's so many different like reasons why. And so my goals could be whatever I wanted them to be. And so for a while, I just made like my only goal for running was if I could run 10 miles in one day, I would get a root beer float at night. And that was so much fun. And so I was trying to run 10 miles every day to get my little root beer float at night. And like, and to clarify, like, I don't think you need to run or you don't need to do something to get like an indulgence. But that to me just made it really fun. Like you can just drink a root beer float if you want a root beer float. But for whatever reason, I just tied that together and it became this really fun game that I was playing, that I was working hard and I was celebrating that I was working hard. And so I just was having like during that time, I found a way to make it really, really fun, which I needed that. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, no, I love that. I just did a little like solo episode. I do these little Wednesday mini episodes that come out in between these guest episodes. And it was talking a little bit about that idea of like, yeah, your goals can be whatever you want them to be. They could be pace focused. They could be fueling focused. A lot of people during a race will just focus on fueling well. It could be like, the life balance focus. It could be a reward focus, like what you said. So yeah, I really think the maturity as a runner, as they say, is like being able to buy into the fact that the goal is not one thing. Like it can literally be whatever you want it to be. And as long as you're setting yourself up to accomplish something, like I think that's the key to longevity in something like this.
Taylor, you were so spot on. And I think when you are setting your own goals like that, it means something to you. And really that's what, running, even if like a time, it means more to me than anyone else. So I should be able to set whatever I want and go after whatever I want. But yeah, I think you need to be excited for whatever that is. So
totally.
I got your back on that, Taylor. 100%.
Love that.
Yeah. Cool. Keira approved. I agree.
Love. Sweet. We're going to take a quick break from the episode to share some really exciting news. For the first time ever, I'm opening up spots for marathon coaching this fall. So if you'll be training for your first marathon, getting back into running, or just want a plan that actually fits your life, I'd love to support you and work with you. Spots will be limited, so if you're interested, I have a wait list you can join in October. I'll be choosing one lucky runner to receive free coaching for a race of your choice. You can find it in the show notes, in my Instagram bio, or right on the homepage at myfirstmarathon.co. Now, back to the episode. Well, cool. Yeah, so we were starting to build, or we built slowly, and then you said the marathon was in mind. I guess what were the expectations that you had on yourself when you started to think about that second marathon and what you were going to change and like how the goals were going to shift and all that good stuff?
Yeah, so for the second marathon, I learned from my first that you can't underestimate a marathon. So I needed to prepare, I needed to train. And so to me, that was like, that's what I took in my toolbox from my first marathon is you underestimated that and you should never do that again. And I will never underestimate a marathon ever again. But so my only goal though was to not walk. I was like, I know I can now do the distance. This time, let's try to run the whole distance. So run at a pace that you feel like you can run the whole way, So, so in the first, I didn't train and I went out too fast and then I hit a wall. So I was like, I can run slower, just run the whole way. And I ended up running much faster, but I felt so good because I had trained. I had done lots of long runs. I had done lots of runs where I had time on feet, similar to the time I ran. And the fact that I didn't necessarily have a time goal, I listened to my body and I found a really great pace that worked for me. So I was able to slowly pick it up during the race. And I remember the last 6 miles, I think I ran like a lot quicker than the rest of the run, which is a really nice way to run a marathon and not always possible. So I think that was like a good negative split, which makes it a lot more fun. Easier said than done. Negative splitting in a marathon, but yeah.
Cool. So that second marathon, and like you said, you cut off quite a bit of time from the first one. So crossing the finish line for that one, what were you thinking? The first one you were thinking, never doing this again, I'm not a marathoner. What was going through your mind the second marathon when you crossed the finish line?
I was just like, oh my gosh. Like, how did I run? I ran almost more than a half an hour faster. And I don't know, I felt really powerful. I'm like, look, I didn't know I had that in me. And I didn't have the confidence as like a runner yet of like where I was going. So every time I did a race, I like proved something to myself of how capable and how powerful I was. So I was really like pumped and really proud of myself. And then pretty quickly after that, I was like, well, if I can do a 3:14 without walking, maybe if I keep training, like, can I run faster than 3:14? So that's when I started getting in this really fun cycle of marathoning that I was like, okay, well, what's next? And I think that's a pretty natural, like, I think when you cross the line of a marathon, your first thought is, I never want to run again. And then you think, okay, what's next? Like, I think I can do a little bit better than that. So I think that's when that whole, like, the fun cycle of the marathon started.
Cool. I love that. So when I guess we can kind of summarize some of the next few marathons, because you had quite a few in between when you ran your second marathon and then when you ran the world record marathon, right? Like there was
Mm-hmm.
probably 10 plus, I would imagine, in there between
Yeah, I think about,
at
yeah, I
least.
think probably close to 10. Yeah, maybe.
Okay. Okay, cool. So yeah, so like within those 10 between second marathon and running the big one, what were you learning? What were you working on? Like how did we, I guess, progress from point A to point B?
Yeah, so in marathon number 3, I remember thinking I need to fuel. And so this one I looked up what fuel was on the course, and I started training with that fuel before the marathon. And then I started thinking, okay, like I started wanting to learn more about nutrition, like before, making sure that I had the energy to do what I wanted. I was trying to
Yeah.
see how much, like, just learn how to take in water and whatever's on the course. So that was like my next goal, is like if I can start fueling in a way that I can, like, just it's more sustainable. And that was a big help, like actually taking stuff in on the course, and then but training my stomach to be able to use what was on the course. Like that was the first time I was ever intentional about that, and that made a huge difference. And I started actually working with a nutritionist then,
Mm.
because I was like, how do I do this? Like, how do I, like, what do I do? Like, how do I fuel during a race? And so she was the one that was like, look up what they're taking. So look up if there's Gatorade on the course or Powerade or Morton, and you start training with that too, because that's what you'll have access to during the marathon. So get your
Yeah.
stomach used to it. And she's like, so your stomach is also, like, think of it as like another muscle. Like you train your quads to get strong enough to hold the capacity of the marathon. You need to train your stomach and your gut to know what to do during a marathon when you do give it fuel. So you got to teach it. And she's like, okay, so the first run that I want you to do, find a loop that's like a mile or 2 miles near a bathroom, and bring like a water bottle, and I want you to sip on it at least every mile. And she's like, your stomach is going to reject a little bit because this is new, but not because it's not working for you. So
Sure.
that first run, I think I stopped at the bathroom like every mile or 2 miles, and I was like, oh, I don't know if this is going to work. But I started doing it more and more, and then my body started learning what to do when I was giving it fuel when I was running. And so I think that was like the next step for me, was just to make sure that I could, yeah, just fuel during a marathon, which is
Yeah.
so much harder than just saying like, yeah, you got to make sure you're drinking water. Like there
Yeah.
is like some technique to that.
Yeah.
So I think I started getting that down, and my times like started dropping a little bit. But then my body also was going through this process of training and being really stressed out, and then recovering and training again. So every time I would train again, my body knew a little bit more of what I was doing and how it could support me. And it just, yeah, I just started becoming more and more a marathoner, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, like rounding out the whole skill set of everything that you need.
Yeah.
The
Yes.
the fueling part for sure. I'm glad that you touched on that. And I think that a lot of people will feel maybe a little validated that that was something that like somebody like you who had all these amazing experiences up until that point, like we're dealing with for your third marathon, because that's something a lot of people are like just can't wrap their head around, or feel like they're behind because they can't stomach fuel, or because they can't figure it out or find something that like works for them. So I'm glad that you brought that up, and it's certainly a trial and error thing, as we say with fuel. You
100%.
want to try as much as you can, and when something
Yes.
sticks with you, like you want to really pay attention to that. So I guess when you were training your stomach to take in fuel, what I guess changed about your running? Like you mentioned that your time started to drop, but how did that make you feel? Like did you feel a difference when you started to do it the right way?
100%. And also, like, I mean, most of us don't start out as marathon runners.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're doing shorter races, you really don't need the fuel. You can get away with not fueling and being okay. So, like, I don't think we should feel silly for not knowing, because, it's like, I don't know, this is all new. Like, we're all
Yeah.
learning as we go along. But this immediately started feeling so much better. I was before, like in some long runs, I was getting lightheaded, and I would feel empty, or I feel like I was hitting the wall. And I started realizing all of those symptoms are from like different fueling. So I realized if I felt like I was hitting a wall, I wasn't fueling enough during, I probably was dehydrated, and I wasn't getting enough carbs in. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I started learning, that is a sensation when I haven't had enough carbs, especially even carb like the night before and the day before. and like the morning of and during. So if I feel lightheaded, I need more carbs. And then I had some races or long runs that I get really dizzy and feel really hungry. And then I realized that also, along with like fuel, like proper fueling that day, that I was low on protein. So I needed to start finding a way to get more protein in the night before or the morning of a long run or when it was really hot.
Yeah.
And then I just felt like I had sustainable energy and I wasn't bonking in the same way. I felt like just more constant. It makes a huge difference, but it does take you a while to figure out. Just like you said, it's so individual and it's trial and error. So it takes you a little bit to figure out what works for you at what ratio, how much you can get in. But really, I think like part of the marathon is like it's a little race within the race of how much liquid and like calories and sodium, and like carbohydrates you can get in during it. So to be able to practice that and build up and practice and build up, then you're really helping your body make sure it has the energy to do what you want it to do.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. I remember the first time that I fueled properly on a run, I was like, okay, I get it now. Like this makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think you have
Well,
like that
also,
moment.
okay, so something too I learned when I started getting some negative thoughts, I realized I was hangry like during
You're so right.
so like when I'm in a marathon or I'm in a long run, I'm in a workout and I start getting a little negative, I immediately combat that with, okay, I need fluids and I need some calories, and I take something in and I'm like back to being a little bit more like patient and just accepting of this is the state of what you're going to feel. So that's like so if in a race you start feeling negative, think I need fluids, I need like a gel, I need something now to give my body some energy so it can like calm down. So that was like another thing. Just mentally, I was able to focus a lot better when I had the energy I needed.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, and I would imagine that kind of separates you from your body a little bit too. I know, like in a race, when you go so internal, sometimes it can feel like you're like stuck in your own body and can't get out. So I would imagine like having something like that to distract you would take you out of that moment. I don't know.
That's so right. You're so spot on. Yeah.
Cool. All right, sweet. So marathon number 3. I guess we could talk about how it went and then how you progressed from there. So how was marathon number 3? How did it end up?
Marathon number 3 was awesome. That
Cool.
like I've had 2 magical races in my life where nothing hurt. Like I never hit a wall. Like I just felt great the whole time, which I think 1 is because I trained. 2, I think I went out conservatively, and so I didn't hit that wall. But that was a really magical race. So I ran 2:47, which surprised everyone, including myself. And that was 2 minutes off the Olympic trials qualifying time. And that's when this all became a little bit more intentional. So it was after that race that I was like, oh my goodness, like I never qualified for the Olympic trials in my 20s. And now mom, Keira, could qualify. Like, why would I not go for that and just see? But that's when it turned a little bit more, intentional and like more goal oriented. I think up until that point, it was just having the time of my life, which I still am, but like I just had no goals. I had no idea of where I was headed. And then I started thinking, well, maybe if I got a coach and I became a little bit more intentional with training, maybe I could run under 2:45 and qualify for the Olympic trials.
Yeah, love that. That's great. So how did that all come to fruition? And what did the next, like, I guess 10, 5-ish races look like? Like what were you changing? You're working with a coach now. How did this all happen?
Yes. So I started working with a coach, and then I had qualified for Boston. So my next race was Boston in 2018, which was a year of like just crazy weather. Like it was so cold and so windy and so much rain. I ended up getting hypothermia in the race, and I managed to finish, but I ran a 2:56, and that was a really hard race. But I knew I was fit to run the Olympic trials qualifier. So then 6 weeks later, I went and did grandma's against the wishes of my coach. He was like, this is not how you marathon. You need to let your body recover and then build. Like, you can run under 2:45. But I felt like I had like a sense of urgency because running was taken from me in my 20s from like an injury. And so I was like, well, what if I don't do it now? Mm-hmm. And then I get injured and I can never run again. I just had a little bit of fear and I wasn't quite patient enough. But I went and did Grandma's Marathon in 2018 and then I ran 2:44 there. So I qualified for the Olympic trials. And then my next marathon was Richmond Marathon where I ran 2:40. So I was slowly like chipping away, and I felt like the more consistent I was, the times were coming down. But after Richmond, we decided we needed to work a little bit more on speed because I was so focused on the marathon that my 5K pace was the same as my marathon pace. So then I spent the next 6 months getting my marathon or my 5K and my 10K times down, which brought my marathon time down by a lot. So the next fall I ended up running 2:34 at Berlin. So that was like a big jump for me. So, but yeah, I mean, I kept, and then I realized I needed to alternate marathon and a little bit of speed work. Even though I didn't like the shorter races as much, it really helped with marathoning. And then, yeah, the trials was the next race. I ran 2:34 again. And that was like a really hilly race. A lot of lessons learned from that one. But then, yeah, the next race that I did, I ran a 2:22. So that was a big, big jump for that one.
Yeah, cool. And then how many was that away from the one where you ended up breaking the record, that 2:22?
So then the next one so I got injured after that. And the next one I did was Chicago, and it was super hot. I ran 2:28 and finished 4th, which I was proud of, but that was a really hard day. And then the next one after that. So it was interesting that I got injured, and it sucks being injured, but I really credit like me being in the right spot physically to break the American record because I took care of my body when I was injured, and I allowed it to be like an insight to my weaknesses and what I could improve. And I did so much PT and so much strengthening work that I think my body was strong enough to handle the next build and then breaking the American record. So I don't know how many marathons that is, but I guess maybe somewhere around 10 or so when I broke the American record. I'm not sure.
Yeah, cool. And then what we could talk a little bit about your injury if you're comfortable with that. What was the injury? How did it come about? What did that look like?
So the injury was a hamstring strain, like upper hamstring strain. And I remember like the first run, my hamstring felt tight, and I stopped and I tried to stretch it, and I kept running and it would feel worse. So I stopped and stretched it. But I remember thinking that day, like, I need to run 10 miles. Like, I'll just run 10 miles, then I'll figure it out. Which I think if I would have just stopped that run and maybe taken a day or two off, it would have healed and I would have been back and running by the end of the week. But I didn't. I pushed through, even though I knew something was off. I knew it was wrong. But that turned into like a 3+ month recovery. We learned during that time too that I have a torn labrum, which I think most runners do. And then I also have a hip dysplasia, which I have a shallow hip on my right. So I think because of the torn labrum and like the shallow hip, my hips naturally turn a little bit back, which puts a lot of stress and pull on my hamstring. So I learned that I really need to strengthen my glutes and my back and my core to make sure I'm holding everything in. So my hips aren't tilting and I'm not putting stress on muscles that can't handle it. So I did tons of, glute strength, glute activation. And I spent like weeks and weeks getting really, really strong. And so I came back and I felt more efficient. I don't think you could really tell from my form, but I was holding my body better. I was activating my glutes when I was running, which I think a lot of runners, sometimes those just turn off, which is crazy because that's the biggest muscle in our body. It's a huge ass muscle. Get it?
Yeah. That's funny.
But we need to make sure that it's activating and we're using it, which is that like took a lot of work. So, but I think it was like positioning myself to be able to get really strong, to hold a better load. And I think like that's why I was able to break the record, because my body could handle what I was asking it to do.
Totally. My poor PT, he's been telling me for years that the glute is something that most of the runners that come into him end up not, it ends up not being their strength. So confirmed, unfortunately for me, but
I know. And it's funny because with running, like when I came into running, I was like, I don't want to do strength. I don't want to PT. Yeah. All I want to do is run. And then I learned the hard way that it's like, okay, well, doing PT and doing strength work is actually less worse than being injured.
Totally.
So I'm like, okay, so I don't want to be injured, so I got to do this. So I've now like incorporated a lot of that, but it took me a little bit to learn that lesson the hard way to like,
Sure.
so I get where you're coming from, and I'm like, I'm the same way. Like, let me just run. But
yeah. It's so super important. Yeah, I went through an injury like within the last year, and you learn a lot of lessons through that, and I think you start to appreciate what you have more once you're on the other side of an injury for sure. And it sounds like you've had a couple of injuries in your career, so you probably had to learn that lesson a couple of times.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, cool. Well, the big race. I guess my first question before we talk about the world record or the American record that you broke, was that the goal? Were you was breaking the American record something that was on your mind? Were you thinking about it? Was it like this big goal like you had when you were younger and you were thinking about the Olympics, or something that just kind of, happened?
I went in trying to break the record.
Yeah.
And I was training, usually when I train, I just see how fast I can go. And then I, like the week or two before race, I think, okay, well, what pace am I going to try to run? So, but I knew I was getting in shape to get close to that time. And I could wrap my head around that I could run like 5:18s per mile for 26.2 miles. But I couldn't wrap my head around that equaled the American record. So I had to totally separate that. So I believed I could run the time. I didn't believe that Keira D'Amato could ever beat the American record holder. So I totally separated those. So I was training just on time, not even concerning myself with what that meant. So I did go in that day trying to run that time.
Yeah.
And like my workouts were pointing to it. I had a couple like really great tempo runs that I was like, oh yeah, I'm ready to go do this. So I went in really confident that I could run 5:18s per mile for the whole distance. But yeah, it wasn't until I hit it and then I'm at the finish line. I know I'm kind of fast forwarding a little bit.
No, yeah.
But I was really confused because everyone's like, she broke the American record, and I couldn't understand that, because I separated those two goals, the time goal and what it meant. And then when all of a sudden, when they were merged at the end, it was really confusing. I think I did a really good job, like mental tricks, separating them. But I still couldn't wrap my head around that part of it. Like I knew I could run the time and I knew I ran the time, but what the time meant was a little confusing.
Yeah, totally. No, that makes sense. I think that's a testament, like you said, to the mental preparation that you did going into the race. So that's great. But during the race, like any walls that you hit, how did you feel? Actually trying to push during that race.
Yeah, it felt terrible actually. Like that race, I had to dig deeper than I've ever dug in any race before. But kind of like we were talking about that whole the toolbox full of lesson learned. I felt like I had to pull out every tool during that race. Like the first couple miles, I had a little side stitch and I was thinking, okay, that's fine. I've had a side stitch before. This is what I do. Get water, take a couple deep breaths. And eventually that went away. So that was good. And then at mile 6, I dropped my water bottle, which I was thinking, okay, you know what? I've dropped water bottles before. I need to make sure I'm getting an extra gel to like make up for those calories lost. I need to grab a couple extra waters like from the course to make sure I'm getting the fluids. So like I could nothing could rock me, and I could roll like with whatever was coming my way, because I had failed and learned all these lessons before. And then at mile 16, I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, I have 10 more miles. I don't know if this is going to happen for me today. But like my head was like, well, you're eventually going to run this time. So if it's not today, it's going to be another day. So if it's another day, you're going to have to finish this race because you're not a quitter. And then you're going to have to recover. And then you're going to have to do a build and make sure that build is good enough and you stay healthy, and find a race that has good enough conditions on a good enough day with people that can run with you. And then get to this point in the race and figure out how to work through it then. And in my head, I was like, that actually seems like more work than just finishing the race today as fast as I can. And then then I made myself a deal. Well, if I can finish this race on this pace, I'm never going to run again. So that was like what I was running for the last like 10 miles. I was trying to run as fast as I could, so I never had to run again.
Yeah.
But you get into some weird places. You play some weird mental gymnastics. So the last 10 miles I was running so hard so I'd never have to run again. And actually, when I crossed the finish line, that's the first thing I said was, I'm never running again.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's crazy. No, you're 100% right. Like the runner's math that we do when we're in a marathon, or like the mental gymnastics, like you said, that we do, it can be absolutely insane. But it's really cool to hear, like, especially reading your story in the book too, like how you were able to take different pieces of your entire journey and like put it all into one event. Like that's so cool. I remember getting like chills when I was reading it the first time. It's a very cool come to fruition moment that you were able to experience, and crossing the finish line and feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm done. Like that was it. When did you get a chance to really sit in the fact that you had just accomplished like this massive thing?
Yeah, so it hit me at two different points in it for two different reasons. But after the race, well, they were like, "Hey, go take a victory lap," and they gave me American flag. And I remember thinking, there is no way I can run another step. Like, what do you want me to do?
What are you
And they're like,
thinking?
just go to that sign and back. And I remember thinking, I don't know if my legs are gonna work. And kind of being like like not like frustrated, like I was so proud, but just being intimidated to take another step. But I like ran out, my legs worked. I ran out and back, and those pictures are like the most special pictures. So I'm so glad that the Houston Marathon Committee had me do that, because those are just the most incredible pictures. But yeah, then I did like a TV interview, and I had drug testing. Then I had a press conference, and I was signing champagne bottles. And then I went back to my hotel room, and I sat in the shower. I turned the water like as hot as I could handle. And then I just lost it. I just started crying. Like, and I was so proud of myself. And the thing that I was most proud of, like, wasn't breaking the record that day. It wasn't that I had won some national championships as a mom in her late 30s. It, wasn't qualifying for Team USA or anything. Like, the thing that I was most proud of was that 90-second run that we talked about earlier. And I just lost it, that I found the courage to start this journey. Because it would have been so easy that day just to say, nah, I don't feel like going, or it could have been easy after running 90 seconds thinking, this isn't for me anymore, I'm going to stop. So I was so proud that like past Keira found the courage to start and kept showing up and gave like current Keira an opportunity to do something really special. And it was really wild to me that after breaking the American record, that was the run that I was most proud of. And I was just sobbing in the shower thinking about how thankful I was for that run.
Yeah.
And that was not expected. That's not what I expected to feel. But that was what I was most proud of. And then like I was also proud that I was showing everybody. Like I know there was my competitors first and foremost. I like little girls, like other moms, like what we're all capable of. Like I'm not, like I say this in the book all the time, I'm not anything special. Like I do think I've figured out like an awesome perspective shift that allows me to keep showing up and showing up and showing up. But I don't think I'm anything special. So setting that record, I loved thinking that other people were watching that. Like if Keira can do that, I can do that too.
Yeah.
Like if Keira can find time to go out for some runs and train for this, maybe me as a busy mom with 5 kids, maybe I can figure out a way to do a little bit of something for me too. And that made me really proud. But then it was like, I still like hadn't merged the time goal and what it meant.
Sure,
and it was maybe like a month after I was driving to my car, and I can remember exactly where I was. And I remember thinking, okay, what am I training for? What's going to be my next goal? And then I was thinking, well, what's my current time? What should I be aiming for? And then I was thinking about what my last race was. Oh, it was Houston. What did I run? Oh my gosh, I ran. And I pulled over and just started crying. That's when it hit me that I had broken the American record. But it took me a month afterwards. And I was doing interviews and I went on the Today Show. I had like all these really cool moments, but I felt like I was going through the motions and I hadn't let it like sink in. But that day, like it sunk in about a month after the race. It was really cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I think the lesson in all of that is like, don't take for granted those first steps, like it's really cool that was what came up for you after you accomplished this huge thing. And like after you even had a chance to sit in it sounds like that you were able to reflect on the experience as a whole as well. So I think, yeah, it sounds like the lesson is, take that first step and don't take it for granted.
Yeah, and the first step is usually the hardest, right? Because there's a lot of unknown. It's really scary. It's something new. But like, I feel like if you could find the courage to get out there and take the first step, even if maybe you don't even make it 90 seconds, maybe you make it 30 seconds or 10 seconds, but giving yourself the opportunity to go find out what if, like, I don't think anyone will regret that.
Yeah, I love that. Cool. I normally wrap up these with a piece of advice for first time marathoners, but I think that's the best piece of advice that we can offer somebody like that. It's just like take that first step. Is there anything else that you would I guess surface to somebody like that that's maybe thinking about training their first marathon or lacing up for the first time? Like what would you offer someone like that?
Yeah, I think for me, coming back into running has been the most, okay, I shouldn't say the second most incredible journey I've ever gone on in my life, second to motherhood. But I, like, when I hear people that are considering it, I am so excited that they're about to unlock and like see what they're capable of and unlock these new things. And it's going to be hard. There's going to be days you don't want to do it, but you somehow find the way to work through that. And like you learn how much you have inside of you that you didn't know existed. And that's really cool. So when I hear people that are like considering their journey, I just get really excited for them because it really is a life-changing journey. And it like, so yeah, go for it. And I'm rooting for you. So anyone thinking of doing a new marathon, I'm rooting for you. You got a fan in me. And yeah, I'll be cheering from you virtually or far, or maybe even in person. But yeah, I'm cheering for you.
Love that. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for walking us through your journey and how you got from your taking those first steps and your journey in high school all the way to breaking the record. Do you want to talk a little bit more about the book and what's coming up?
Yeah. The book comes out 9/9, which I really like because it's just mathematically pleasing. Like 3 squared, 3 squared, 9/9.
Yeah.
It's wherever books are sold. Definitely Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all the bookstores. Shopping local, I think, is incredible. I love local bookshops. Whenever I go to a new town, like I like seeing the running store and the bookstore. There's like my two favorite things. And the library. Libraries are super, super cool too.
Yeah.
And then I did the audiobook recording. So it's my words and my voice. And if you don't like my voice on this podcast, you're probably not going to enjoy the audiobook. But if you can stomach my voice here, it might be a fun way. Like I really like running and listening to audiobooks. That's probably what I do the most when I'm running. So so I hope I can join you on a run and I can tell you the long version of how I got from here to there. But and then I'm on Instagram at Keira D'Amato. So if you ever have any questions about marathoning or want to connect about marathoning or anything, that's where I'm at. And then I'm on Strava. And I think Strava is, especially for new marathoners, I think it's so cool that one, you can track progress, which is awesome. Like when you start a marathon build and you're working on running a couple miles, and by the end you run like, your 16-mile run or your 18-mile run. It is so cool to see that progress. And I think Strava is a really fun way to do that and to connect with community and not feel like a lone wolf. And even though sometimes you end up training by yourself. So yeah, I'm on Strava. I put up a joke of the day instead of just like morning run. And so that's good for some laughs. So if you like jokes, follow me on Strava. I tell a lot of jokes. They're not all good jokes. Most of them, in fact, are lame jokes, but they're jokes nonetheless, and they make me smile. So, but yeah, I love connecting with other people like to move their body. So yeah, come find me.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I'll make sure to link some of that in the show notes as well so people can find you there. But thank you again for coming on. This was so awesome getting to know you a little bit more, and make sure you check out Keira's book when it comes out.
Thanks, Taylor. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the My First Marathon podcast. For more stories, tips, and resources, head to myfirstmarathonpodcast.com. And if you want access to bonus episodes, exclusive resources, and extra support for your training, make sure you check out the community at myfirstmarathonpodcast.com/exclusives. You can also follow along with us on socials, Instagram and TikTok. That's at myfirstmarathonpod. If you want to follow along with my personal journey, that's at tay.says. Whether you're training, recovering, or just thinking about signing up, you belong here. I'm so excited that you're here, and we'll see you on the next one.